This week we're going to be actually just following on from what we talked about last week. So last week I spoke about openness, and if you want to look back on that, or if you didn't see it, then I'm going to just stick a link to it down below the video today, so that you can go and check it out if you want to, so that it makes maybe a little bit more sense. And what we're going to be looking at today is clearing, because after I'd done the vlog last week, I always reflect and look at what I've done and how it impacts and stuff. And what I realised is, as you open up, you tend to become more aware and to be able to see, or things come up, negative things like your negative belief systems, programmings, bad memories, reactions, fear, all of that lovely stuff, all starts to bubble up a little bit. And in the vlog last week, I did speak about how to sit with those emotions and how to just allow them, and that by allowing them, they soon pass and shift and everything else. And that's still absolutely relevant. But what I realised is that there's something else that I do that I hadn't shared with you. So this week, what I'd like to do is to share that with you so that hopefully it'll add a bit more value to you. And as I said, what it is, it's called clearing. Now clearing, I suppose, just goes on the premises of, sort of sweeping or just clearing away all the negative programmings, negative beliefs, negative thought patterns that you've created over the years. And I suppose in its theory, it's meant to be faster and more efficient than just allowing things to bubble up. Now, what we're going to be looking at is 3 different methodologies to do with clearing, and I'm going to post links to the different methodologies below so that if you want to go and read some more about them, then you can. Now, just before we start, I want to just share with you how clearing works for me, how I see it, because maybe it'll help you to see it more clearly. If you imagine you have a garage, a big double garage, and it's full of junk. So over the years, since you've been born, you've just stuck all your old stuff, the stuff you don't like, the stuff you don't want to think about, you've just shoved it and crammed it into this massive double garage. Now, when you start clearing, you'll pick up a handful of stuff and you'll walk out, and you'll come back and you'll look at it, and it'll look like nothing has changed. And it'll look like you have this massive room and that you've really done nothing about it. And clearing is a bit like that. When you first start using these clearing statements, it'll seem like nothing has changed, and you'll think, well, they're just a load of nonsense. But actually what you've done is you've just taken a few little scraps out of your massive garage. And it's the consistent use of these clearing statements that will help you to eventually shift and clear the larger items and enable you to be able to see that what you're doing has actually got some benefit. I've now been doing these clearing statements and using them for a number of years, and I can definitely feel a huge shift in me every time I use one. I know this might sound bizarre to some of you, but for others it'll make perfect sense. But when I use them and I'm in the right space, I can feel my stomach gurgle, or I can burp sometimes, or pass wind. It's very delightful. I suggest you do it in private. You can actually feel physically that something has shifted and you feel lighter. Anyway, so that's how clearing works as a whole, and now I'm going to take you into these 3 different methodologies. So the first one I'm going to share with you is something that was designed by Access Consciousness. Access Consciousness is a huge organisation globally, with people practicing it and teaching it. It's a way of thought, it's a way of behaving, it's not really a prescribed lesson or doctrine. Anyway, you can follow the link and learn more about it. But they have a clearing statement that they use, and the reason that they use this particular clearing statement is that it is illogical, and it accesses the unconscious mind, and it bypasses your conscious reasoning because it's illogical, and therefore it can help to remove things from it. It's a very specific set of words that they have imbibed with energy and meaning, so you can't just make up your own illogical statement and expect the same results. And what their statement is all that this is times a godzillion. Destroy, uncreate and clear it all. Good, bad, right, wrong, pod, poc, all 9, shorts, boys and beyonds. As I said, it's illogical. But anyway, and you might not remember it at first, it took me a while to learn it. But just go below and follow the link and you'll learn a lot more about it. The next one that I'm going to share with you is one by a lady called Chrissy Marie Sheldon, who I greatly admire. She works with energy, and she works with blocks and things like this, and this is a statement that she tends to use. Before she uses it, because she works with energy, she asks participants to connect above to the light and bring the light into them, and then connect below to the energy of the earth and bring that up into them as well. And it's from this energetic connected space that she uses her clearing statement. And her clearing statement is, please clear and transmute all of this good, bad. Actually, now I'm using the access consciousness one. Please clear and transmute all of this through all time, dimension, space, and reality. That's hers. So it's a lot shorter. Hers isn't illogical, but she works with the connection of energy. And the last one that I'm going to share with you is one by somebody called Dr. Hugh Len. He had a book written about him called Zero Limits, the Ho'oponopono, and it goes on, it's got a massive title, but you'll find it just by typing in Zero Limits Ho'oponopono. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of history about this man, because to me that kind of, it just makes the whole idea and the whole philosophy behind it so much more exciting. He was a Hawaiian mystic, and he was hired by a mental institution for the criminally insane. They basically reached the end of their tether. The situation, the atmosphere in this institution was so dire that they were losing staff. Well, the turnover of staff was pretty much every second month. So people would last 2 months and then they'd go. And so he came in this atmosphere, and instead of working with the inmates, he asked to have a piece of paper with all the inmates' names written on it. And as he cleared, he basically went through each name, and anything that came up for him in relation to this name, he cleared. And the long and short of it is he stayed for 2 years, and at the end of those 2 years they had to close the institution down because they no longer had any inmates. Now, I just found that so amazing, and the philosophy behind this one is that everything we experience in the world is inside of us, and this is something that I absolutely 100% agree with. We as humans cannot see what we don't know. Now, I'm going to give you a few examples of this. One of them was that it was when I was living in Botswana in Gaborone. I remember I was friends with somebody there once, and they talked about getting an integrated bumper. Now, I'd never seen an integrated bumper. I hadn't got a clue about integrated bumpers, didn't know what one was. So I thought it was a really rare thing because, I mean, I drive around, I see many cars every day, and I'd never seen one. So I was in my office and he sent through a picture of what an integrated bumper was. And I looked at this integrated bumper and I thought, wow, well, I've never ever seen one. There's no cars and cabs basically that have an integrated bumper, or if there are, they're very few and I've never seen them. Anyway, as I drove out, suddenly everywhere I looked, these cars had integrated bumpers. Not every car, but they were a high proportion. I suddenly saw them. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because you can't see what you don't know. And another way to understand this is something that came to me recently when I was trying to learn a bit more about Apple products. I just got myself a new computer and I wanted to understand it better, and I went to a class there. I went to a couple of classes, and one of them, the gentleman explained a whole load of things that I didn't know anything about. It was really exciting. And in the next one, the gentleman said, oh, I'm not going to share anything with you. I'm not going to tell you anything new because I think it's all overwhelming. You tell me what you don't know. And I sat there and I thought, but how can I tell you what I don't know? Because if I knew it, I would have Googled it and found out about it. I want you to tell me what I don't know because I can't see it unless I know about it. And that's really how we work in this world, and that's where this clearing thing comes from. So unless we have experienced something like loss, we don't see it in other people. If we haven't experienced, I'm trying to think of relevant scenarios, I'm thinking of racism. So somebody who has never experienced racism most likely doesn't see much of it in the world. Somebody who has experienced it most likely sees a lot of it in the world. But it's not because there's more or less in it in the world, it's because they are more aware of it. So where does it start? Does it start in the world, or does it start with your awareness? And his philosophy is that we can impact everything in the world, all of our experiences, by clearing and sorting out the stuff inside of us. To me, this is a really amazing way of looking at the world because it makes you completely powerful. Because if something is out there, it's very hard to change. But if it is inside of you, then it's very, well, I wouldn't say easy to change, but it's definitely a lot easier. Now, his clearing statement, it's also very simple. It's, I'm sorry. Actually, sorry, no, it's not. It's, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And thank you. Now, I struggled with this a little bit in the beginning. One, because I'm sorry didn't come very easily to me, and forgive me also because it was like, well, I haven't done anything wrong, you know, I couldn't help that I thought this differently and whatever. Anyway, I had a lot of resistance. But now I've played around with it and I can get myself into the right space, and I've realised that the power of this statement is not just in the words, but it's really feeling the words when you say them. So when I say I love you, I say it to all that is. I say it to life. I say it to whatever your interpretation of the universe is, God, Allah, whatever it is, you input your own ideals and beliefs there. But really feel it in your heart. When you say you're sorry, it's not sorry for having done something bad. Well, for me it isn't anyway, because that's where I have the resistance. It's sorry for not knowing better. Because I'm sure we've all made mistakes in life. And most of the times I've realised people don't make mistakes on purpose. They make mistakes because they don't know any better. So when I say I'm sorry for not knowing any better. I'm sorry that I made this mistake. I'm sorry I believed this thing because I didn't know any better from my humanness. And please forgive me. It's not please forgive me because I'm a naughty child and I willfully did something wrong. It's please forgive me for not knowing any better. Please forgive me because at the time I did the best I could, but it wasn't what I really want. I actually, funnily enough, had an insight into this just recently when I was running. Anyone who knows me will know that I get a lot of insights when I run. And it was, this lady stopped me and asked me for directions, and she wanted to go to a specific place, and I sent her off down this path. And I said to her, no, she has to run right to the very end of the path, and then she'll have to double back to get where she wants. And so we said goodbye and we went our different ways, and as I ran on, I suddenly realised that there was a gate halfway along the path that I'd spoken about, which would take her out exactly where she wanted to be. And I felt so bad because this poor woman I've now sent off along this massive path telling her she has to go right to the end. And I never told her because I wanted to be mean or nasty to her. I told her because at the time I just didn't think about it. It wasn't in my awareness. And that suddenly clicked for me of what I'm asking forgiveness from. Because if I could suddenly run into that lady again, I would have said, look, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And that's what I ask for forgiveness when I ask for the universe, is I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do whatever it was. Where I was at the time, it was what I thought I needed to do. So those are the 3 clearing statements. I hope what I've shared with you gives you some value today. Please go off and play with them and see what it feels like. And just remember, you're going to have to most likely do them more than just once or twice. Just do it every time something comes up. Play with them, see how you feel when you do it. Just observe what's going on. And I wish you all the best. And if you've got any insights that you'd love to share, I'm always grateful to hear from them. Thanks so much. Lots of love. Bye-bye.